So, Trevor, when it comes to the metaverse specifically, what are some of the questions you're hearing from people about this metaverse experience or, any comments that you're hearing?
I think the top comment that I'm hearing is that individuals are interested, they're excited about it, but they're confused by what this virtual element actually brings to them. So, if I'm thinking from a brand perspective, what's the benefit of me having a space within the Eyewear Artwalk virtual world?
That's a really good question. And let's start with the reason we created this platform in the first place. So, right now, I just teleported. Now, if any of you have ever been to a physical event before, you will know that getting from the experience, if this event even has such a thing, to the convention center is certainly not as fast as I just did. So, if you really were to count the amount of time you spent moving from attraction to attraction or waiting just to speak to somebody, you'd realize there's a lot of time you're wasting. I've managed events. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of events in my career. And I got to tell you, if I was to count the active time, meaning the time that I'm spending doing things versus the waiting time, I think that those numbers would be very unbalanced, leaning more towards the time that I spend waiting to meet with the right person or waiting to get into an experience or an event. I went to an event once. I waited 3 hours online just to get into something, and that's time that I could spend doing other things. So the great thing about this convention center is we built this in 2021, right on the tail end of the pandemic when people were just starting to go back to events again, and they were starting to really feel the pain of physical events, because we all wanted to get back into the real world after the pandemic ended. But once we got back and enjoyed that IRL experience that we'd been craving, we started to remember some of the challenges that were still there waiting for us. The biggest one is you come to an event, you come to a booth, you see that there's an exhibitor that's there and they're already engaged with someone else. Now you want to talk to them, but you can't because you've got to wait politely for that person to finish and you may walk away. Now there's two losses there. There's a loss for the brand because they saw you, they made eye contact with you, they nodded as if to say, I'll be right with you, but they can't, just disengage from the conversation they're in. If there's one person manning a booth, they can only have one conversation at a time. So what we designed are these AI powered assistants, which you will see starting to take on a personality and even a face eventually. All of these attendants will be designed by our brands based on the participation level they have with our event. But as you see here, David Green, who will be participating virtually at Eyewear Artwalk. And David Green will have him on in coming events. David has been participating with my vision show and the optical metaverse for 3 years. He's in South Africa. He does not come to the US very often, even though he has a huge network of retailers in the United States. He has a very small optical sales team. So if you want to engage with David Green right now, you have a couple choices. You can go to Mito or Silmo, which is where he typically goes every year. You can hopefully catch him at some of the upcoming Vision Expos, which he will occasionally frequent, but due to the rising costs of travel and some of these exhibits can, it's cost prohibitive for a younger brand, not a younger brand, for a brand that is independent. It's going to make it easier for David to come and meet with everyone around the country and really spend his time and his resources meeting with you face to face and giving you the things that you need to succeed, as opposed to the, hundreds of thousands of dollars it can cost traveling the world, just try to make that connection. And, it is very, very, very likely that a brand like David Green would be physically at an event at the same time that their ideal customer is there, yet they just don't connect. So to answer your question, Trevor, I think the lowest hanging fruit with the metaverse is faster, easier, better connections, and new opportunities that just can't happen any other way. I'd love to let you kind of break that down a little bit.
Thank you for that. I think it definitely provides a little bit of clarity, but I see you walking around now and you're looking at engaging with these booths, and we were just talking about benefits. So if, for example, David Green is speaking with somebody in person, what's the next steps? You know, I can't speak to you, but you're in the Omniverse. You know, what do you do? Do you fill out a form? Are you placing an order right then and there? How does it all kind of work together?
That's a really, really good question. And I'm actually in front of the perfect booth. So if you really think back, I'm going to answer your question directly, but I just want to give you a little bit of a context in what I'm about to say. If you really think back to every brand and what their activation and conversion journey has looked like at their physical events, it evolves. Maybe the first year they go, they showcase their product, they assume the rep is going to take their pad, take orders and notes, and then they realize we're losing a lot of people. Then maybe they put some banners with some QR codes. So if somebody is busy, the person attending can just scan the QR code and fill out a form and request information. We're starting to see brands get more creative in using technology here. When brands come into the metaverse, it's almost as if they're trying to connect the dots between what they do in a real event setting and what they could do here in the metaverse. And what our team does is we work with them to say, look, it's very simple. Do you want to immediately connect with these brands? Meaning they can go in, request a call, shoot, they can even request to connect with you in these, what we call live stream booths that every one of our brands gets so that you can instantly connect with that vendor if they're available. The challenge with that is, as much as we enjoy the idea of being instant, it isn't always feasible. So we will work with every one of our brands to make sure that they can design the level of access that they would like to provide to the visitors to their specific booth based on their ability. So, for instance, with ULens, they had a very specific product that they wanted to promote. It's this new performance vision kit. So they created this form, to your point, Trevor, simple, easy. I come in, I learn about this promotion, I indicate which one I'm interested in, I give you my information, done. HuLens immediately in real time gets my information. I could literally still be in the metaverse and get a text or a call from the team that says, hey, if you're still there, wait 1 minute, I'll be right with you. And they could just teleport right to where you are. And you would literally be standing here speaking with the team, assuming they're not there. Now, one step further, we're going to be hosting live exhibit time in this convention center during Eyewear Artwalk, which means it is very likely that if you stepped up to this booth, there would be a live person manning it with their avatar. Talk to me a little bit about, did that answer your question, Trevor?
It does. Thanks for that. Diving in a little bit more though, you were saying, thank you for sharing Q Lens. They're able to get the information, but what's the data flow here? What am I able to track as a brand sponsoring a virtual booth, let's say? What's the data I can receive? And I mean, do I receive that data?
That's just such an incredible question. And there's so many layers to that. The team here at Eyewear Artwalk, and you know this because you work with me on this every day. By the time we hit Denver, I'm sure we'll be tracking several thousand hours as a team of the amount of time and energy and tenacity and grit that we've put into this. And we will have collected, coming into this event and leading up to the event, over 45,000 active email subscribers, metaverse participants, attendees to our event. There's a giant list. What you get access to as a brand is contingent upon your level. So everybody will get a list of the eye care professionals that have shown an interest in your brand. Now, typically, showing an interest means I went to your booth and I filled out a form. But we've actually made it even more, we wanted to create more opportunities than that. Because if you think about a funnel, first getting someone to an event, that's huge. If an ECP, an eye care professional, shows up at an event, they're there for a reason. They're there to learn, they're there to buy, they're there to support their local community by showing up and seeing what's going on there, but they're very, very, very engaged. So we definitely want you to know if this person comes into your booth. And so even if they don't fill out a form, you'll be notified, Susie visited your booth. So you can send Susie a message and say, hey, thank you for visiting us. Would you like to meet us virtually or would you like to meet us physically? And those will be decisions that you and that individual can make based on what you want and what they want. So 100% of our brands will get all of the visitors from their booth before, during, and after the Eyewear Artwalk event. And that's regarding the virtual event. They'll also get a list of all of the people who visited them physically, because every brand is going to have a QR code and the ECP can check in. So, if they're not, and there's going to be rewards that we'll be giving to encourage them to do that. So you'll be able to get an idea of who's checking me out, who's interested in me, and then you as a brand can do your own follow up accordingly. I think that piece alone is a big missing component, because if you think about it, it's one or the other. And I could say this from experience because I've participated in a lot of brands as a sales associate before, and even as a coordinator of these events. And when you're working an event like this, whether you're the owner of the company or you're somebody managing that event, you have a huge responsibility. You're talking about a lot of money that you need to generate at these events in a very short amount of time. And you want to do it without seeming, you want people to have a good time. You don't want them to feel pressured, but you also do have a job to do. So there's delicate balance here. So knowing who is genuinely interested in your brand, which is a very small set of the attendees that we're talking about here, it's super important, because those are the people who want to hear from you. They'll be impressed. If you follow up with them and say, hey, I saw you were at our booth. Did you have any questions? That's the ultimate customer service. That's what we all want. We're like, oh man, I forgot about that. And everyone was busy. I meant to go back and I forgot about it. Thank you. Thank you for texting me. Thank you for calling me. I think that right there is the lowest hanging fruit. And then there's other huge data points that we can get. And there's data journeys that we can design with our brands where they can say, look, I know that my sale, my order, my company, it's not a one-touch sale. People don't come here, discover my product, and place a 50-piece order first time. They need to learn about my brand, learn about my story, learn about the creator, learn about how it's made. They need to actually get in there and remove some screws from the frame and see how easy it is to put back together. Really talk to some other opticians. What do they think about it? Our industry is very methodical when it comes to making decisions. They're very conscientious about the brands that they bring in, and they put their name behind when they put it on their board in their optical shop. So allowing our brands to actually create that journey and say, hey, and I'll give you an example here. I'll go back to David or actually Kazoku Lynette's perfect example. Now I can either go to the Kazoku Lynette's exhibit, or I could take the Kazoku Lynette's experience. Michael has opted into this, so I could tell you some of the elements now of that experience. It's going to be learning about the fashion show behind the scenes, watching how they did the casting, seeing the looks of glee on the faces of the people that sat on front row during the fashion show and are just celebrating that Michael now is not only the most amazing designer of this luxury eyewear with this unique aesthetic. I'll show you some of the frames so you can get a flavor of some of his best sellers. This is what we did here with this is obviously we don't want to overwhelm people with 100 different frames. So we said, look, show people a sample. What is the kind of best of the aesthetic you have? And, Michael and his team are in the process of updating this now and making this relevant for Eyewear Artwalk, because what I understand is he's actually made some pieces exclusively to launch at Eyewear Artwalk and to supplement and support the fashion line that he's going to be showcasing here as well. So as you hear me talk on and on and on, it's a lot of information here. It's new information. It's exciting information. It's definitely not information you're going to get walking around a show floor. You just don't have that amount of time. So coming to a booth like this and taking the Kazoku Lunettes experience and getting Michael to explain why he used these designs, why he has this brow bar, why Kazoku means family, why he fits his frames on 4 to 5 different humans, and they could be from different ethnicities, different cultures, different head sizes, different, weight classes, because he wants to make sure that his frame fits perfectly on every face. You might not know that if you're breezing past the booth and you don't get to talk to him, but our experiences, not exhibits, experiences are designed so you can really take a deep dive into these brands, but you could do it on your own time. I know I gave you a lot of information there, Trevor, but does that help?
It does, and that's fantastic. I do want to break some of those points down a little bit, but one of the things that you said I think is most interesting to me as a marketer, as a data analysis, just as a business individual, there's key pieces of data that I miss with in-person events. And one of them you said is basically booth attendees. If I can't get to you to speak to you at a live event, I more than likely have lost that entire sale. But what you're telling me is that I could have, a QR code in the booth that says, while you're waiting, experience, whatever we've built in this virtual world with Eyewear Artwalk, and I still then can capture their data? Question mark?
Absolutely. And data is something that's very tricky. It's very important for brands to have data, but it's also important for the user to feel like they've got their own privacy and security, and they're in control of who, what, when, where. Now, we all know when we go to a convention that the whole point is for us to demonstrate our interest. So whether we're available at that moment or not, and we expect the brands to follow up with us. So if somebody walks into a booth and scans a QR code, they're going to expect you to call them back. That's not going to be creepy. But if they're just, breezing by your booth and they don't really show interest, and, we could technically capture those as visits as well, but we don't, because we want the user to be somewhat in control of what's going on. However, you could, and this is something we're going to be offering to all of our brands, send an email to our entire network of everyone that's on our list, 45,000 and growing. And you can tell me what the number is now, Trevor, because you manage that. By the way, where are we at now with our audience count from our email list, our social media, the people that we actually can actively touch? What would you say that active touch list is at this moment?
We actively engage with about 58,000 unique individuals across the US so far and counting.
Perfect. Okay.
And those individuals, I want to preface, are eye care professionals. That does not include the general public. If you're looking at general public, add another 30 to 40,000 on top of that. But for the purpose of this conversation, it's focused and tailored to the brands. So let's say they want to talk to ECPs. We're looking at 58,000 strong and growing, honestly, 10 to 15% week over week.
And I think you bring up a very important point. I think people in the beginning, especially when we started this event, were super confused when we, in 2024, took a leap of faith and started giving the general consumer a voice, an opportunity to participate and learn about the industry. There were a lot of people that were very upset about that. But I got to tell you what's really funny, who's not upset about that. I thought we were going to get much more pushback from the local dealers in these markets, but they seemed very excited because they know the value of having an educated buyer. It's like, how much time do I have to spend explaining like why this is a better quality and what to look for and the craftsmanship and the customer service and the value of all these different things and the accuracy. It's a lot of time that they're going to have to spend explaining that just so they could do their jobs properly. So they got it immediately. They're like, this is great. You're going to educate our consumer, show them why it's important to shop locally. I love that. But our focus has not been on the consumer at all because we don't need it to be on the consumer. They're coming anyway. This is the first time in history they've been allowed. We're not trying to drive consumers to this event. They're just simply coming. Would you agree with that? Because you're the one running the marketing.
I would agree with that in the beginning. I think now, of course, because we're seeing the consumer engage so much and we're seeing the acceptance both from a brand supporter and from the ECPs, we're starting to do more community outreach. And we have some community initiatives, especially lined up for Denver in the upcoming weeks. But it's amazing how, one eye care professional in Denver learns about this, and the fact that they may tell two or three of their patients just kind of throughout the day in conversation, that spreads. I mean, we're getting engagement with people that are not on our target list. They're not on our targeted audiences. We've never engaged with them before, but yet they're finding us and they want to be involved in this.
Well, you talk about data. Let's talk about data cleanliness. We have lists from, every major clearinghouse in the industry. We've been growing them over the years. And I have my own personal list of 27 years that I've been growing and maintaining. And when we first started cleaning up this list to make sure that our email counts and everything were real, accurate people, we found a lot of people that weren't even on any list. And, a lot of them are these mobile opticians that are popping up doing this virtual styling. They're a perfect new audience for independent brands. And we're finding there's a lot of boutique, sunglass shops that are looking to start opening up their shops to sell, luxury sunglasses with just a regular plano polarized lens, like kind of like this whole, they're kind of competing with like the sunglass huts in the mall, but they're opening up these storefronts in these, strip malls, and they're seeing a lot of success, especially in markets like Denver that really do invest in quality sunglasses because they have the sun's out a lot. A lot of them are very active. They're outdoors a lot. So it's we're learning a lot just from the Denver market in general about new segments of the market that are completely untouched. They're actually not even known about. And we can expect them to grow. We can expect if there's somebody out there driving around in a van, having a bougie lifestyle of styling people in their homes like celebrities with luxury eyewear and making a living, the word gets out about that job opportunity. You're going to see people going out looking for these vans, souping them out with these Airstreams and hitting the road to give that bougie celebrity, home delivery experience. That's the future, right? That's fun. That's exciting. That's giving all of us like a new opportunity as a supply chain.
Honestly, incredible to hear. I mean, I'm new to the industry, and those who join me on our Wednesday podcast know that I'm very new. So, I mean, I love to see how the industry is seeing the modern consumer and is starting to make that transition to cater to that modern consumer. And we're seeing that especially with those who are registering for the Denver event.
So, we could talk at length about some of these different components, and that's the reason we're doing these events. And again, we're going to start staging them every 2 weeks to give people a break to learn about it. We'll be repurposing the videos that we do because Trevor, thank you so much for joining me on this call. I feel like you've helped me to really hone in on the meat and potatoes of this. A lot of times I do these demos, I'll do it more like this is this and that is that. But your questions, which are kind of on behalf of the audience that you've been very closely connected to. It's really helped me to zero in on the points that people are wanting to hear about. But I think next time we do this in a couple of weeks, we're going to get a larger group of people in here having fun. I think we're going to really build that buzz coming into Denver and making this virtual portal, this digital twin of our Denver event thrive and really give all of us the opportunity to understand there's so many people out there that want to be involved that will come virtually if they can't come physically.